Listen here, boys. You ever hear the saying, good things come in threes? I mean, I would assume so. It's a pretty common saying. That saying works in sports. Sometimes the situations align and pop up where three of the best athletes of that sport come together on one team and become an instant contending threat. You know, like Kyrie, Harden, and KD, Braun, Wade, and Bosh. Or even in football, you got Aikman, Irvin, and Smith, right? Point is, when you see names like that together on one team, you kind of get scared when they play your team. But sometimes, like in the case of the Nets trio, it doesn't work well. What if I told you there was a team in recent years that had the best wide receiver, best running back, a quarterback putting up career numbers, and an O-line most teams would kill for? That actually happened. They were called the Killer Bees: Ben, Brown, and Bell. Join me as I talk about the downfall of three athletes who were at the pinnacle of their game not but 5 years ago.
Crosser, Brown, he caught it, fights to the goal line, breaks the plane, touchdown Pittsburgh! Dumps it to Bell, and Le'Veon Bell takes it in for the touchdown.
On the creed of the color. So cry out so you can see. 5 times to hell, a legacy. Left the dog on the other side. There's nothing sweet about me. Pounding their hearts and fear.
Let's start with the oldest player in the trio, Big Bad Ben Roethlisberger. Drafted in 04 at 11th overall, he was instantly pushed to being the starting quarterback, replacing last year's starter Tommy Maddox. He came into the league with some pretty good weapons, honestly, having Hines Ward and the guy shot himself in the foot, Plexico Burress. Ben would immediately make an impact in the Steelers organization, leading them to a 15-1 record as a rookie. They'd lose in the conference championship, but still, his rookie season would be one of, if not the best for a quarterback of all time. Also, by the way, that 1 in 15-1 wasn't even Ben. It was Tommy Maddox, who was a starter for one game, and then he got pushed. Then, next season, he would win the Super Bowl, beating the Seahawks. At that time, Ben would become the youngest starting quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. Then in 08, they'd win again, beating Arizona. This time, though, the game would be most memorable for the James Harrison pick six and the Santonio Holmes catch, which was still one of the greatest of all time. Ben's career, though, hasn't always had this golden side to it. He's had a couple of run-ins with incidents, like in 06 when he crashed his bike outside the Armstrong Tunnel in Pittsburgh and almost died, literally, and a nurse driving by would end up saving his life, which shout out her. And also Ben would be accused of allegedly having some non-consensual fun in a bathroom stall, which leads to some people calling him a certain word that YouTube wouldn't like, so we're not going to say it. But anyway, they'd actually, a couple years later, make the Super Bowl for a third time, but this time they'd lose to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, and I mean, look at this team, right? Look at least the wide receivers. Look how much talent there is. They still got Mike Wallace, Hines Ward, Emmanuel Sanders, Antoine Randall L. And I don't know who Arnaud's battle is, but he's probably a dog. And there's one more guy. His name is Antonio Brown. Nope. Nah, I'm good. I'm not doing this right now. Not doing it. You can't make me do this. I'm good. So for the next couple of years, the Steelers would be contending. They just wouldn't have the most playoff success, like when they let Tim Tebow call game on them in the first play of overtime. Whatever. Anyway, let's move on to our boy Le'Veon Bell. He attended Michigan State University and was a standout there, playing 3 years there and being phenomenal in all of them. There's not really a lot to say about Bell before we got to the NFL, so I'm just going to move right on to the draft, where he was projected a second or third round pick and was rated the 5th best running back in the entire class. Then at 48th overall, the Steelers would take the MSU product. Yeah, the second he got to Pittsburgh, he was making an impact, rushing for 860 yards and 8 touchdowns in his rookie year. Then his second year would actually be even better by miles, rushing for over 1,300 yards, and not only did he make the Pro Bowl, he'd make the All-Pro team. Bell was an absolute star in the making already, and with the other talent the Steelers had at the time, going into the 2016 season, they could make a real run at this thing. They had the offense, like Ben, Bell, a really good O-line, a couple decent receivers like Marcus Wheaton, and also they had, I can't avoid it, can I? They had Antonio Brown. So, yep, here we are. Antonio Brown, better known by the nickname AB. Coming out of high school, he didn't have like much attention. He got an offer from Central Michigan, and of course he attended it because at this point he still had a little bit of sense. He was amazing in college, but he was undersized and had some major character concerns. In the 2010 draft, he would fall way down all the way to the Steelers in the 6th round at 195th overall. His first year on the Steelers would be as a return specialist. The next season, he would literally break the fuck out. I'm trying to stop swearing, but like, how else do you describe that blow up, dude? It's night and day. From 2011 to 2018, he only had one season where he didn't put up 1,000 yards. 1 year in 2015 to be exact, he put up 1,800 yards and 10 touchdowns. That's wild. That's crazy. That's GOAT level stats. So like, needless to say, dude, you have a generational quarterback, you have an emerging star at running back, a receiver who's already having a Hall of Fame career. This team looks unbeatable offensively. Personally, I classify the Killer Bees era of the Steelers as 2016 and 17. That'll be the years I'm referring to when I mention their peak. Now, the nickname, pretty easy to understand. Ben, Brown, Bell, all three Killer Bees, right? 2016 was business as usual for the boys, as they would earn a really good record of 11-5, and of course would win the North. Last stop before they made their Super Bowl appearance was Foxborough, where Tom Brady and the Pats would smack the Steelers up, winning 36-17. Individually, they all put up phenomenal numbers. These were them. Like, look, dude, these numbers are amazing. Like, everybody eats when it comes to these three. In the wild card round, they play the Dolphins. Easy win for the boys. They'd win 30-12. The next stop was to go to Kansas City and play the Chiefs. This game was a lot closer, but just beating them 18-16. Last stop before they made a Super Bowl was Foxborough, where Tom Brady and the Pats would smack the Steelers up, winning 36-17. Real quick before I move into 2017, I want to mention that regular season game against the Dolphins was the game that Jay Ajayi absolutely ran all over the Steelers. Look here. Look, listen. There's always next year, right? You got all the key pieces. You're still a favorite in the AFC. There's no chance you don't win this, right? You can definitely make it next year. You beat Tom Brady, and you're in the Super Bowl. It's that easy. They had the 5th highest odds to win the whole thing in 2017. The actual 2017 season, the Killer Bees just casually putting up 4,000 yards passing, 1,200 yards rushing, and over 1,500 yards receiving. And Le'Veon Bell putting up a career high in touchdowns. And all that would lead to a divisional round game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, one of the best defenses we've seen in years. And the Jags would, sadly, depending on who you ask, would be too much for the Steelers, losing 42-45, but there's always next year, right? You get a deal done for Bell. You got the 4th highest odds to win the whole thing. How could this go wrong, even in the slightest? Well, seeing the title of this section, you can tell it didn't go well for the Steelers from here on out. Let's take this person by person. First domino to fall would be Le'Veon Bell. He didn't really want to play under the franchise tag, so he threatened to sit out until he got a real extension and would end up sitting out the entirety of the 2018 year. By the start of the 2019 season, he'd be playing in New York for the Jets, who signed him to a 4-year, $52.5 million deal. After not being used a lot in New York, he would ask for a trade, and which the phenomenal, always amazing, never losing, constantly Super Bowl bound head coach Adam Gase would be quoted as saying, "I hate this is the route we had to go with all this," instead of just talking to me about it, but it's the way that guys want to do it nowadays. The Jets wouldn't get a trade for Bell, so they'd release him. Then in October of 2020, he'd sign a deal with the Chiefs, where he wouldn't do much of anything, and then after all that, he'd be a free agent again. After his time in KC, he'd have a small little baby beef with a Big Red Andy Reid, where he'd say this on Instagram, and also this. Not much else came of it, but yeah, put Big Red and Le'Veon Bell in a boxing ring. Let him duke it out there. Then the next season, he'd join the Ravens practice squad, and then a little bit later, he'd be signed to the active roster. Then a month later, he'd be released. His last stop in the NFL would be in Tampa, where he played 3 games, and then he'd be gone. And that's the end of his NFL career. Now, while Bell was still in the league, he would be making music. One of the songs he released was called Target, which was about his issues he had in Pittsburgh.
So they put me on the tag, definitely not gonna trip, I got that bag, wonder why they treat me like the bad guy. You say I ain't the best, well that's a bad lie.
Then he would also organize the Smash Bros. Tournament, where he did really, really well, and would play as the best character, and I will hear no other answer in Mega Man. He would also try his hand at boxing, trying to call it Jake Paul, but eventually would fight Uriah Hall first, and then later Adrian Peterson. He would lose to Uriah Hall, but he would beat Adrian Peterson. The latest thing he's been up to is being on The Masked Singer, so that's cool, I guess. Now on to Ben's part of the story. 2019 wouldn't be the best year for Big Ben, even though he signed a new 2-year, $68 million deal. He would get injured in week 2, then that would be the end of his season. From here on, you can clearly tell Ben was on the end, towards the ending of his career. He would return for 2020, where they'd be the most overrated 11-0 team in the NFL history. They'd finally get humbled by the Washington football team, ending the year 12-4. They'd get cleaned up in the wildcard round by the Browns. Then 2021, Big Ben's last year. They'd hang in playoff contention coming into the last week of the year. They needed to beat Baltimore and for Indy to lose to the absolutely horrific Jacksonville Jaguars. And of course, the Colts couldn't win one game, and they lose to the bottom-dwelling, abysmal Jacksonville Jaguars. Now all Ben and the mediocre Steelers had to do was beat the Ravens. And of course, in overtime, they did. Before I talk about that last game ever, I want to touch on his last home game against Cleveland, the week prior to that Steelers game against the Ravens. I was in downtown Pittsburgh that night. The feeling I had not even being a Steelers fan was like bittersweet. This is the best way I could describe it. Steelers fans were like kind of excited to see him play this game, but it was also like this is the last time we'll ever get to see it. So it was cool. Then in the playoffs that year, they'd get bonked by the Chiefs, and that's it. Big Ben's career would be over. He'd retire at the end of that season. Now there's only one left to wrap up. Well, here we are. Let's just try to get this done with. In a playoff game against the Bengals, AB got blasted in the head and given a concussion. Some people believe that the following I'm about to talk about all stems from this hit. Personally, I don't know about that, but I want to make it apparent that it's a thing that exists because it is a big part of Antonio Brown history. Moving on, at the end of 2018, he would get into a beef with Ben Roethlisberger and a minor one with Juju, and then skip practice and then demand a trade. Then during the offseason of 2019, he'd get traded to the Bills, but actually no, he'd show his disapproval for this on Instagram, so they had to find him a different team, which of course would be the Oakland Raiders. He would say this about Ben Roethlisberger on a HBO show, The Shop.
Lose a game, he like, damn, AB should have ran the better route.
Why would Ben do that?
That's the type of guy he is. He feel like he the owner, bro.
First, everything seemed to be fine. Then he'd post his frostbitten toes on Instagram and then also get upset he couldn't use his unsafe helmet anymore. Then he got fined by Mike Mayock for skipping practice. He would later definitely allegedly, call him a certain slur for white people. Has to do with a certain type of saltine, let's say. He denies it. It's a weird thing to make and say it. It's still alleged. Then, on September 6th, he'd upload a video on YouTube of a pre-recorded phone call of him and John Gruden in his video. Gruden would ask AB to stop this and just play football.
Please stop this shit and just play football. How hard is it, man? You're a great football player. Just play football.
Also, at the end of the video, AB would say this.
This is my life. Ain't no more games.
No more games would be a lie. There's only more games from here on out. The next day, before he even played a snap, he'd ask for his release, and they granted it, then voided the guaranteed money. The same day AB would be released, he would sign with the Patriots, where I start what I would call the Tom Brady arc in AB's career. He played one game, then allegations of him exposing himself and rapping a woman would arise, and the Pats would release him instantly. Then during the offseason, got suspended for 8 games because of the previous incident and because he committed a robbery, which would lead to him having a warrant out for his arrest. They charged him with felony burglary of a vehicle, misdemeanor battery, and misdemeanor criminal mischief. He turned himself in and was later ordered to do 100 hours of community service and attend anger management. Then after all that, he signed with Tampa, where Tom Brady was now. See a theme that Tom Brady wants to help this guy? It's crazy, right? He would have decent success there and actually win a Super Bowl ring with them, which is still wild to me that he got fitted for one. Then he would leave the NFL with one last big spectacle during a game against the Jets, where Tampa was losing at the time. AB would strip down to everything but his pants and leave the field. Never to be seen on an NFL field ever again. So him and Bell actually have some things in common, like being on The Masked Singer is one, and trying to rap, except AB's is a little less, a little more of an acquired taste, some would say. Especially this song.
You wanna see me play? Daddy's so scared cause he wanna see me score.
In 2022, he'd expose himself to another woman, this time in a Dubai hotel pool, where it seems really, really bad. Don't search out the video, but it's like no means yes kind of. I can't show the video because he lost his swim trunks, to say it nicely. Then on October 10th, he'd post a tweet that forever changed the world, would change everyone's mind on how they see him. This tweet would make him a legend. It would say, you know what? We were all wrong about Antonio Brown. This tweet created a revolution of humanity. And it's this. The most recent thing AB's been up to is he bought an arena football team, part of the National Arena Football League, and yeah, that's what he's doing now. This is like real recent too. This is like 2 days ago. Before I end this video, I want to mention the Tom Brady stuff I was talking about. Tom Brady did nothing but try to help this man, and AB threw it back at him. Tom Brady tried to help this man privately. He didn't post on Instagram. He didn't post on any other social media. He would message him privately and try to get him help and try to do stuff for this man. And AB would post it publicly and try to make Tom Brady seem like an asshole. Then when Tom Brady would get a divorce from Giselle, he would post multiple pictures of him just fucking making fun of Tom Brady. Which, like, Tom Brady was the only guy that ever tried to help this man, and AB doesn't want it. And that's just sad. It's all sometimes funny or sad, however you want to see it, to watch some of the shit AB does. On a serious level, this dude needs help. He is self-destructing more than any human I've ever seen, and he really needs help. And because he's not going to get any better. It's just going to keep getting slightly worse. So while Bell, Brown, and Ben were all elite at one time, all the greats have to fall at some point. While some fade out into their own thing like Bell, or keep going until they become the villain and ruin the image they used to have. The Killer Bees failed as a trio to win a Super Bowl, but it shows that sometimes even the most talent does not mean success. I have been Dom. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you greatly for the support on my last video. This is the first video I ever had that hit like 1K views. It's crazy. I appreciate it. There's gonna be a lot more videos like it coming out. Make sure you hit that like button like Vontez Perfect and sub. That too. Bye bye.